Hello and welcome everybody to the first podcast on aircraft accident analysis. I'm your host, Captain Riz. Our thoughts and prayers are with the deceased and their loved ones as they grapple with their loss in any accident. And today we're talking about Indian 171. Did you know this is the second Indian 171 flight that crashed? Indian Airlines Flight 171 was a scheduled domestic passenger flight that crashed while attempting an emergency landing at Bombay Airport on 12th October 1976. Let's talk about aviation accidents and let me give you a little introduction about myself. In my 48 years of aviation, I have led several investigations, being an aircraft accident investigator since 1992 and a senior airline training captain. I have served in executive safety management roles and as an Australian government inspector on the specific Boeing 777 aircrafts. Aircraft accident investigations are complex, systematic processes with the sole objective of preventing future accidents and incidents, rather than apportioning blame or liability on any individual or organization. Before we talk about the Air India 171, a quick 101 on aircraft investigations to give you an overview of how investigations are conducted. The three things to consider in any aircraft accident or incident investigation. These are man, machine, medium, or to rephrase it, human, aircraft, and environment. So, when we talk about humans, we're talking about the pilots. We look at their experience, training, their records, their fatigue at the time of the flight. And so we also take into account the contributing factors from those interacting, such as the engineers, air traffic controllers, anybody who was related to that flight on that specific day of the event. Any errors or omissions are recorded, which would be something that they did do or did not do. The second thing is the machine, the aircraft type. In this case, it's a 787. So you have to look at the recent record of the aircraft and the specific history of this aircraft, the one that's part of this accident or incident, its recent reported malfunctions, technical rectifications that have been carried out, and investigation bearing in mind the system's procedure and limitations of that particular aircraft. Third is the medium, which is the environment. Here we look at the weather, possible communication and navigational aid discrepancies, the runway condition, birds, or other factors. The list goes on. The usual questions, as in any investigation, are what happened, why, how, who, when. You get the idea. And the investigation must get to the root cause, which is the question, why? Why did it happen? And we must ask it many times. For the first time, may not have the answer to the root cause. A simple pilot error submission is never the excuse or the reason for an investigation. It's run by the International Civil Aviation Organization through its Annex 13. It requires a systematic approach starting from notification and initial response, including safety of people and preservation of evidence. The second part is the organization and planning of the investigation by appointing the lead investigator, choosing a team, and providing resources based on their plan of investigation. For instance, if it happened in an ocean, then the requirements are different. The third part is the data collection. And this, as you know, starts with the site investigation, recovery of the cockpit voice recorder, digital flight data recorder, witness interviews, documentations that are reviewed along with the laboratory and technical analysis of the documentation, the logs, and so on. Fourth part is the data analysis and the event reconstruction. So this is to identify the factors or to identify immediate causes and contributing factors. Fifth is the conclusion and safety recommendations. This is based on factual information established during the investigation. And finally, reporting and dissemination. Preliminary report is issued within 30 days of the accident. Draft final report is then circulated to the relevant parties for their comments, which would be the engine manufacturers and organizations. That's shared by the investigating team. And then once they've got the report and the relevant comments from the parties involved, then a final report is generally published, ideally within 12 months of the event. So all collected data integrated to reconstruct the sequence of events leading to the accident, a timeline and the chain of events. Invariably, there is a chain of events that lead to the event, the accident, the incident, and one or more contributing factors that cause that to happen. Investigation is based on data and facts, with witness statements corroborating, as we've discussed. Most of these details are available from the aircraft, basically the cockpit voice recorder, which records any internal and external communication, along with sounds recorded within the cockpit. You can hear switches and aircraft warnings that can also be recorded from the cockpit. The second biggest source is the digital flight data recorder, which is called the black box but is orange in color. It's generally placed at the tail of the aircraft and withstand high impacts, large variation of temperature and pressure, It is waterproof. It records engine, flight, configuration, and ambient conditions. Could be hundreds of data points. Boeing 787, for instance, are fitted with a pair of enhanced airborne flight recorders, each of which performs the functions of both the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder. We're talking of, as I mentioned, hundreds of data points that are recorded. And these are then overlaid on the flight path with a timeline. For Boeing 787 aircraft have digital video recorders that stores footage from the aircraft's external and cabin-mounted cameras. And this is separate from the two certified flight recorders we've talked about. In the absence of hard evidence and data, the process of elimination is conducted. That may not be relevant in this scenario. As a Boeing 787 Dreamliner captain myself, I've reviewed the Air India 171 accident. Some basic details like I want to share are its registration, VTANB. It was delivered to Air India in 2014, so it had been in service for 11 years. It had General Electric engines, while there is an option of Rolls-Royce engines some airlines choose. Air India has another 24 Boeing 787 in the inventory, so they were not new to this aircraft. The flight departed in a southwesterly direction from runway 23 at 1:39 p.m. local time, and the aircraft barely climbed 300 feet above ground and crashed 30 seconds after takeoff. Line training captain and 8,200 hours, whereas the co-pilot at 1,100 hours experience approximately. Weather conditions were fine with light winds and nearly 40 degrees temperature. It had gone to 43, I'm told. So with Air India Flight 171, it has been reported through various responsible sources that 1. It took longer than usual takeoff distance and time, and we had slightly to the left from the center line during takeoff. 2. The landing gears were not retracted just after getting airborne, as required, and as can be seen on the footage. 3. The flaps and slats have now been confirmed as extended. This has been established by looking at the wreckage. The initial speculation about selecting flaps instead of gears is now debunked. 4. The ram air turbine was auto-deployed, which generally comes on in case of both engine failures. 5. A mayday call was given just after takeoff. There has been some mention of adding no thrust, not taking lift, which has not been verified. So we know that the crew declared an emergency. One of the lone survivor out of the 242 passenger mentions the lights in the aircraft began to flicker green and white, and the aircraft appeared to be stuck in the air. Now, stuck in the air can be assessed by loss of power. The lights green and white is just being claimed but has yet to be established. There can be flickering of lights when the power source moves from the engine source generators to the ram air turbine. He did say he heard a loud noise, which could be the crash itself. That is yet to be verified. 7. Both the DFDR, the digital flight data recorder, and cockpit voice recorder, as well as the DVR, the digital video recorder I have mentioned, have been recovered from the wreckage. These store footage from the aircraft's external and cabin-mounted cameras and will add to the additional information from the cockpit voice recorder and the digital flight data recorder. 7. We know that 241, out of which 12 crew and 229 passengers aboard, and 38 casualties on the ground have been identified to have perished. Some of the speculation now as to the reasons is now focused around, was it a dual engine failure not recognized or considered a single engine failure initially before takeoff? The possibility of both engines failing is now considered as the reason for this accident. Although this being due to bird strike has not been ruled out, in that case there would have been some things coming out of the engine at the back and some fire. Getting traction is the theory of fuel contamination or perhaps vapor lock leading to the dual engine failure, which means both the engines failing at the same time, and this 787 was a two-engine aircraft. The other speculation is about the captain's seat being unlocked because it moves forward and back, and during takeoff resulting in the seat rolling back. Subsequently, the thrust levers pulled back, resulting in the power loss because the captain's hands were on the thrust lever, which give thrust, add power to the engine. The other speculation is about a major electrical failure because the emergency system transitions the rat when there's fire damage systems producing unstable output can cause the rat to deploy. Number 4th speculation at the moment is about avionics software or electronic engine controls malfunction, such as the FADEC. FADEC is the full authority digital engine control, which sort of supplies fuel to the engines. There have been reported incidents of ANA flight NH985 on January 17, 19, operated by All Nippon Airways, experienced a simultaneous shutdown of both engines during landing at Osaka Atami Airport. There's also a reported Jetstar Airbus 787 experiencing dual engines issued during approach to Osaka, but that was attributed to software glitches. One of the factors that has been taken into account is pilots' training and experience these days, is considered deficient. Experience requirements have been curtailed and training shortened with the pilot global shortage at the moment. So, points to note are that the 787 was launched in 2011. Over 1,000 787s are in service globally, and they've been for almost 15 years. That is a reasonable time for a safety record. To the Boeing 77 is more electric. More electric systems have been designed to take over instead of hydraulics and pneumatic systems as in the previous aircrafts. The ram air turbine is a backup emergency and deploys by when both main power sources fail, typically from both engines. And so this seems to verify that there was a dual engine loss. The official investigation being conducted is led by the Indian Civil Aviation with assistance from UK AAIB, which is Aircraft Accident Investigation Branch, and USA American NTSB, National Transport Safety Board. Aircraft manufacturer Boeing, engine manufacturer General Electric, and other suppliers are supporting these investigations. However, we will learn more as the data from the CVR and DFDR is made available. As such, all these are informed professional opinions only and speculations. Facts remain to be verified with accurate data before the initial findings are disclosed and the final report disseminated. I am Captain Riz, wishing you safe skies and happy landings. Thank you.